Hello and welcome all. My name is Raymond Posch, and this is New Ways of Being and a brand new episode today. And I'm going to be talking about my conversations with the divine, how I have experienced that, what I've learned, and um, and I'm going to kind of walk through a number of examples in my journal just to give you a feel for what I have been experiencing in the way of conversations with the divine. And when I say divine, I'm I'm being general because some of those conversations have been with angels, some have been with the Council of Earth, which are ascended masters. Um, some have been with God directly. Some have been with my spirit guides. So it's taken a number of different forms, and I wanted to give you a feel for that because I would encourage you to really pursue a path to open yourself up to a greater intuition and, if possible, to learn to have conversations with the divine. It is very powerful, and it is as I get into it, I'm going to explain this. It is incredible in a number of different ways, and it's been the most amazing thing that's happened for me. And it's pretty much all happened this year. Now, I did first have some conversations with God, pardon me, back in 2019. And what I did then was I sat down and got into a state of presence, tried to get a quiet mind. And as I did that, then I reached out and I asked God to talk with me. And I, over a number of different sessions, probably maybe a half a dozen that I had that year, I had some success. But what I encountered was after some of those, I really questioned whether was I imagining that, or was I really talking with God? And I had things happen that proved to me that I was imagining um, part of that, and that really put me off of even being able to talk with God when I reached that point. So it wasn't until now, this year, 2024, that has all changed. And so let me get into that. Uh, and and when I will make a mention here that back in 2019, when I did those conversations with God, I was at my computer typing while I did that, and something, told me that I needed to capture what was transpiring for me as it was happening, because I questioned whether I could remember it, or um, I thought it would be helpful to do it. And I've since discovered that was actually kind of a form of automatic writing, which I learned is a very good technique to do this. So I'm not going to go into those conversations. Um, I'm going to start with what happened for me this year, because since 2019, I'd really have not been able to talk with God. At different times, I have tried. I've tried to expand my intuition. I've asked for guidance, and it hadn't happened. And then this year, what happened for me is that there was a gentleman that I met named Seth Dietland, and some of you might know that he was on a couple of my podcast episodes. He was on my older podcast, Our Spiritual Life. And then last fall, he was on uh, New Ways of Being on one of my episodes. And subsequent to that, he invited me to a webinar that he put on, and he talked about conversations with God, conversations with angels. Now, Seth talks about um, talking to his angels. He channels angels, and they have provided incredible guidance to him and his life. And um, he gets, he channels when he's like doing some coaching sessions, he channels information from, and guidance from the angels in the process. But so he told me about this webinar, and I thought it sounded like it was worth checking out, which I did. And he, in that webinar, he talked about a course that he had previously offered and decided to offer again. And he called it his Divine Dialogue course, Dialogue with the Divine. And so in, I suppose it's probably in a 1 hour webinar, he talked about what would be in that course. And that really got me interested. And he gave enough information in the course that that evening, um, he, by the way, when he channels with the angels, when he later shares that information, or even while he's channeling, if you will, that energy that's contained in those messages causes what's called activation. It can cause you to tune in more and have a shift in intuition. So, and I'm going to have to watch here because I want to try to keep this a little shorter than most of my 1 hour episodes. So, in fact, I'm going to take off my watch and put it in front of me, and maybe that will help me remember. Okay. So I learned something from him in the webinar, and afterwards I felt somewhat activated, and but I didn't have any immediate kinds of insights, that kind of thing. But and that was probably in the afternoon time of day. Later that evening, I sat down and I, for whatever reason, I reached out to the angels, and this time all of a sudden it clicked, and I began to have a conversation with the angels. So the webinar was on January 13th, and so I'm talking about that evening, and 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 I have an email that I want to read because I emailed Seth and I said, hey, I was suddenly able to talk with angels. Here's what happened for me. And so I said, I had what I would describe as an actual conversation with angels. One thing that was different about how I connected to the angels is, instead of trying to connect with them directly, immediately, I first connected to the quantum field in a state of pretty high vibration, high energy, and openness. And then I asked the angels to respond. And the technique I used to shift into high vibration was from reading a book that I had read written by Joshua Bloom, and his book's called The Ultimate Answer is Inside. And he talks about this energy activation process. And so that's what I did, and it helped me shift into this energy state. And in the way Seth had described it was to become more aware of your heart center. And that was a technique I had tried for years with no real luck. And at any rate, so that stepping into the quantum field with Joshua Bloom's technique from his book worked for me because when I asked the angels to respond, I got a reply saying something to the effect of, "Hello, Raymond." And I asked if I had connected to one angel or a group, and the answer was it was a group of angels. And I asked if they had a message for me, and the answer was, "Keep doing what you're doing." Now that was in relationship to a number of things that I was working on in terms of increasing my my vibration level, trying to stay in a greater state of awareness or presence. And so I knew it was in reference to that. And but I asked them what specifically was good that I was doing, and the answer I got was, since January 1st, your frequency has been substantially higher. So keep moving more into the light energy. Now, let me explain something about when I say I have a conversation with the divine or with angels. And I try to be in a total state of presence. That's being totally in awareness with thinking, shut off, no thoughts. You can tell whether if you're in a state of total wholeness or excuse me, a state of total awareness or presence. And I'm talking about it in terms of presence as Eckhart Tolle speaks about it, being in the present moment, being totally in awareness with no thoughts. If you hear thoughts popping up, that's telling you you're not quite fully in awareness yet. And so, but I was in total awareness at that point. And I asked the angels if they had helped me before, even if I thought, for example, I was talking with God or that, and maybe I wasn't even aware, of what was happening. And they said many times before, and they gave me an example that, and they referred to something that happened that led me to upgrade my guitar. They were involved with that. And I think I've talked about that before, so I'm not going to go into that here. But uh, and I asked them, is there a difference between me connecting with God and with them? Is there a difference? And they said, yes, there was, and that I would know when I was talking with God directly, which I have in the past even. And I asked if I should sign up for a course that I was thinking about. And they said, yes, you will be pleased with the results. So I started to say that when I'm having this kind of conversation, I don't hear it as words spoken to me like by you, how that kind of, a personal conversation would work. It's it is personal conversation, but what's coming into my awareness is, in a certain sense, it's words, but it's really more, it's ideas, it is thoughts. Yeah, I think I would say that this is really telepathy. So this is coming to me, and to a certain extent, as I'm writing it down, and I now I almost always write it down. I prefer to do that because I do have a record of it. But I'm choosing words sometimes. I mean, sometimes I'm not thinking about it per se. I'm just writing it down as it comes. Sometimes I have to stop and translate it into words. I get a meaning, and actually sometimes I actually pause a moment and say, no, that's not the right word. That's not what they're telling me. Oh yeah, it's a different word, and I go on. So it is, like I say, it's messages being sent to me that are, it's like receiving words, but it's actually different. So I'm not sure I can make it clearer at the moment, but I wanted to point that out because there can be a translation process or interpretation process as I go along. And there are times when I'm writing it down where I will actually, or especially if I'm reading it later, but I might do it shortly after writing a word. I might mark it out and write a different word above it because I realize it's a better translation of what was being said to me. Um, so yeah, in answer to that question, I got, yeah, you'll be pleased with the results. And just so the total result was, it was an amazing experience to me because I had not specifically talked with angels before. And that led me to further conversations with angels. Now, as I said, I'm going to refer, and I'm going to try to speed up the process here. I'm going to refer to my journal and just give you some examples of what transpired for me, um, so that it give you something to relate to. Um, Now, so I ended up taking that course from Seth Dietland, and it was 4 modules. And in module 1, he talked about tuning into the angels and how you do that, but you have to get very focused. And I don't, he talked about putting awareness on your heart space. And he doesn't emphasize awareness to the extent that I do. So there may be different levels of connection for different people. And in fact, I'm pretty sure there are. And people receive information through intuition in many different ways. Some people get mental images of something that has meaning, um, or they might visualize a person's face image. Um, they might receive words. They might receive concepts. They might receive, uh, you know, audio sounds that would provide clues or information. But but going on, in his course, module 1 was tuning in, module 2 was receiving. And that's very important. You have to be in a state of receiving, open, and allowing communication to come to you and actually receiving those messages. Um, and so one of the assignments that he assigned was journaling or automatic writing. And so you start journaling, you could focus on being grateful and writing down what you're grateful for. And as you go deeper and deeper into it, you may click into this automatic writing mode where suddenly you're receiving words from, it might be from your higher self, um, or it, let's say it's from your higher self, because that's probably the most likely case. And when you are, and especially if you're receiving from like angels, but even if it's your higher self, it might then be in, you might start off writing, I did this today and I'm grateful for, and all of a sudden, when you go into automatic writing mode, you might start writing down you, you know, it might begin to be in the second person. That's your higher self speaking to you. And, you can do this, or you should do this, or we recommend that you uh, pay attention to this. So that was a very powerful tool for me because it really helps. Uh, the that it helps for that reason. It helps you shift into this state of, this journaling state, this recording state. It kind of observational, um, but it does help you shift. You suddenly may be receiving guidance from the divine. Now let's see. So I started journaling on January 17th, and I wanted to mention here that he also, in module 3, that was talking about acting on the guidance, and module 4 was on staying aligned. Okay, you could see that there might be some logic in that, some reason. So I started journaling, and things began to click. I mean, it's very worthwhile to journal just from a more broad spiritual point of view, journaling what you're grateful for. And he recommended journaling um, for miracles and signs, anything that kind of stands out to you that might have been a sign from the angels, or may have actually been some little miracle like finding money. Or he talks about with angels finding feathers. But it helps you think about what's going on in your life from a more inner perspective. Now, so I began to get into that, and the modules were spread over 4 weeks, so it didn't happen all at once. But uh, so that first occurrence happened on January 13th, and then here I'm in my journal. I see that I journaled various things, and then on January 19th, um, I uh, I reached out and I said God and angels, and I asked. Um, Actually, I was being more observational, but was asking for some guidance about something specific in my life. And the answer that I got um, was a little bit broader than that specific question, but it did answer my question. And the answer was, Ray, know that you are loved and supported. You have a role to play in the ascension. That's the awakening of humanity. And we are here to help you. Wholeness is a big part that you can help share and teach. And they said that because I wrote a book called Awakening to Wholeness. So they were referring to that, and they said, so keep wholeness always in your heart, it always in your heart, awareness, and communications. So that was a general answer, and I kind of left it wide open. And I didn't. I think my interpretation was that was probably God, but it could have been the angels. um, that same evening, later when I went to bed, I reached out to the archangels, and specifically Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael, and Metatron. And I had a very interesting conversation. It was especially, it wasn't very real specific. It was kind of almost like getting acquainted a bit. Um, but I remember asking Metatron a question because it's it's said that Metatron, uh, before he became Archangel Metatron, had a life on Earth, and he was and wow, of course I'm drawing a blank right now, but he was one of the prophets that was in the Old Testament, uh, who ascended into, well, he was taken up into the heavens, it said. And there have been interpretations. Well, it could have been uh, aliens, or that could have been, you know, totally spiritual. But and then he came back to Earth, and that kind of points to, well, maybe that was aliens. It could have. It was interpreted. That's very, very possible that he was describing being taken up in a spaceship and seeing Earth from above, and etc. But at any rate, so I just asked him a few questions, and it was kind of interesting. And it just dawned on me. I kind of made a mental note at the time. That's something I should follow up on later and explore that a bit more. And I've been so busy with many other things that I've not done that. So that's not been my focus. Um, let's see. So I had a little brief conversation with God on January 20th, and uh, in one of his modules, Seth Dietland talks about, you know, asking if there's a task that the angels could guide you to do that day, or uh, to give you, to give you a specific message, for example. And so I think I had asked God, do you have a message for me? And what I had written down was, be at peace, my son, and fill yourself up with the wholeness and unity of the one. Let love expand within you, and then reaching out to all around you. Um, very, very broad, very general. So most of it since then, it's gotten much, much more specific. And the kinds of conversations that I have with the divine tends to be specific conversations. I mean, I do ask for guidance or ask if there are messages, but it may be something I'm very concerned about that particular day. And I ask specific questions and get specific answers. So this is a good reason why you want to develop this ability, because I eventually reached the point that I've turned my life over more and more to guidance from the divine in all its forms. And because I know that they it's all out of pure love. They all are in communion with me, if you will. They know what I'm thinking. They know what I'm asking. And I can I can spend much less time debating, well, should I do this? Should I do that? Trying to figure things out. When you stop trying to figure things out and you accept the guidance from the divine, wow, your life changes. So my life has changed totally over these months. Um, the on January 27th, I reached out to the Council of Earth, and I've talked before off and on, here and there, about a book that I read called The Wisdom of the Council, written by Sarah Landon. She channels the Council of the Earth, and they are divine beings, heavenly beings. They may have lived on Earth, or maybe not. Some may have, some didn't, but they all work together to help people on the Earth evolve. And so I reached out to the council. I said, "What would you have me know right now?" And the answer was, "You are loved. You have always been loved. You are worthy of all good things, of that which you desire, a life of joy and fulfillment. You are creating heaven on earth." And for many months now, this had actually just started late in 2023. I started working on, from guidance in the book, creating heaven on earth within myself. And so they said, "You are creating heaven on earth. Feel it within you in every moment. Feel it growing and gathering strength and momentum such that it is guiding you, carrying you along in the flow of your life. You are the creator of your life experience. Keep letting heaven on earth expand for you." And so it is. on, then on another day, I asked, I reached out to the council. What is the most important thing I should do next? And they've emphasized practice staying in the state of expanded love, um, or in the state of awareness to the extent that you can experience it all the time. And actually, over a number of years, I've worked on being in the state of presence. So this is something I've worked on previously, but they emphasize that I should work on it more. The more you stay in love and heaven on earth, the more you will share it with the world that you interact with. Uh, One time when I reached out for guidance, and I think it was the angels in that case, just from the tone that I heard and the what I was hearing. I asked what I should do. They said, "You've done enough today." And he talked about what I had done for the day. They said, do something you would enjoy doing now or the rest of the day. And I've gotten advice on a regular basis to stop and smile and relax more and enjoy life. Um, so I've got that, and that may be very advisable for you because so many people complain about the major problem in their life is stress, and stopping and shifting out of that is very important. One time, I was asking God, and I asked specifically, how will I know your guidance, your voice? And the answer was continue to expand your awareness. Awareness is key. And by the way, I've asked the question before, who am I talking to? And more than once I've gotten the answer, does it matter? And the answer for me, the answer is in most cases, no, it doesn't matter. Because what I've learned is that the angels and God and the guides and the council, there is such a unity of divinity that it is all one. I'm sure you've heard it described. It is one, the one, or some people say, it's all that is. And so they emphasize they are so connected to God, to the unity of spirit, of the divine, that and they can ask God for guidance and questions at any time. Um, that it is one unity, and that's something we all need to wake up to. Yes, we well one of the things. So I'm going to speed up here because I'm taking way too long. I've had one of the questions I asked one time: does it help to send love out to the world? And the answer was yes, absolutely. Uh, keep doing that. Okay, I'm actually going to shift now to a different journal book. And I actually started this different book I actually started on February 22nd. Okay. One time I have this excerpt that I took from the book The Wisdom of the Council. I think it was from that book. Well, at any rate, I'm going to go on. The answer that I got was I had read this excerpt, and God responded. I said, "What would you have me do next, or what would you have me know?" And the answer was, "Read the words beginning my highest well-being," and that's how that excerpt begins. And actually, I had translated it into my first person because in the book it was written your highest well-being. At any rate, read those words, now fully feel into that lesson and discover what comes to you. And I wrote down how I replied. Yes, this gives me a different perspective because it refers to abundance and being my highest expression of myself. On another time, I asked God, well, I was asking, how do I sense divine energy? And the answer was, the best guidance I can give you is to go into the most complete state of awareness, beingness, or presence, and open and allow guidance while remaining in awareness. And another time I had asked the question again about, how do I know it's you and not my imagination? And the answer was very much about you must, it must be from a state of awareness. If you notice that your imagination is kind of running away with you, you've shifted into the mental state of imagination, um, rather than receiving. Okay, there's a whole lot of things I can about specific guidance that I got, that I could give you answers about, but so once I learned that of the unity of divinity, how strong it is, that even typically, if you talk to angels, it may be it'll be your whole group of guardian angels that will respond, and it's not typically one of them. It could be, but generally you're talking to the angels or to the divine, and you don't need to know who it is. They are all interconnected. One time I said, this was on March 16th, Divine Wholeness, I feel your presence. Do you have a message for me? And they talked about keep expanding as you have been, expanding your awareness, expanding uh, your um, focus on heaven on earth. But I was not, you know, I could interpret this as being from God, um, but I directed it to divine wholeness. But I was pointing out things that had observed that were happening within me. And one of the answers I got was, you are continuing to awaken to higher levels of being. There is so much more to come. And those are very much kinds of messages that are in the book, the Wisdom of the Council. But I did ask that particular time, are you angels or guides? And the answer was, does it matter? Um, and uh, but I said, no, no, does it matter? No, except what shall I refer to you as when I describe this experience to someone else? And the answer was, call us your guides. So you're my spirit guides. And I've since God has told me that my guides are at least some of the council of earth, and some are my guardian angels. And I've been told that I need both. I get different kinds of support from angels. They help me with the specific things in my life, and the council helps me with heaven on earth and other specific things. So, well, and well, God said, actually, what happened was I had written something down in my journal and described it as a conversation with God, a couple paragraphs, being written down, and God, like the next day, said, the I wanted to point out to you the messages you recorded in your journal uh, were not from me, God. They were more from uh, your imagination, or more correctly, your wishful thinking. So that was interesting. That was the first time that had happened. Um, but I got what was pointed out to me on being clear about knowing that I'm talking with God or the divine is that I need to check how tuned in I am at a high vibration. Tuned in is, like tuning a radio dial. You have to be at the right frequency. You have to be at a high frequency and stay on that frequency. And and I really, what it was, that situation where it was pointed out to me, I hadn't been. So tune in and uh, be fully in what I call a divine conversation state, which is a matter of receiving, be totally in awareness and in a state of openness and receiving. I've got to go faster here, but I had another occasion where I was talking with God and I said something about, I was asking about money and abundance. And the answer was, first, don't be so humble or shy or resistant to money or other abundance. You are an expression of me. You are worthy. You are actually unlimited, and you can create money and an entire life that is far grander than you allow yourself to know. So I think this is very important to all of us. Many times we limit our own abundance. Second, uh, God said, do what you pointed out that you need to do. Step fully into awareness or the divine quantum beingness and tell me directly that which you desire to create. And what's interesting here is I had written down and ask me directly. And then I realized God was telling me, no, tell me, tell God what I want. Um, all right. There were so many conversations that were just absolutely incredible and mind blowing. Here's here's one that I want to touch on, and then I'm probably going to have to try to get to an ending point here pretty quickly. But in the wisdom of the council, there was a statement about embody the love that you are as that which you call God. And so I said, I'm struggling with understanding that. And here was God's answer: begin acting more like a human that is God rather than a human who is merely awakening. Be me in your physical form. So, if you've been following my episodes, you know that uh, we've been told by the divine in conversations with God, in messenger after messenger, that we humans are individuations of God. We are waves on the ocean of God. We are waves on the ocean of the one consciousness that we call God. And so I've known this for a long time, but in the book, The Wisdom of the Council, and in my conversations with God, God has increasingly emphasized the importance of this, that if we want to have experience heaven on earth and create it in its fullest form, we are creators and we have to step into that. We have to know that we have God within us, whether you think of it as partnering with you or that you are God as one individual human being, spirit in human form. Um, we need to begin to step up to that more. We need to begin to be real creators as we are meant to be. to come up from that in a total perspective of as God would, of being totally good, totally innocent, no judgment whatsoever, being impeccable, always for the greater good. And he went on to say, but I'm asking you to step fully into divine beingness, into being God, individuated as you. I'm asking you to be an agent of God, to act as God to the extent that you can. And remember, you can always ask me for guidance at any time. That's one of the reasons you want to develop this skill of having conversations with the divine, because then you can stop and ask what something means. Here's what I'm thinking. Am I thinking about this wrong? And you'll get an answer. Yeah. That particular day, at the end of that conversation, I said, oh, and God said one more thing. Yeah, I made the comment. I said, isn't that way more than being a way shower? Asking me to be God. And the answer was the best kind of way shower now is one who chooses to be God to the highest degree possible. Think about that. All right. Oh, I did have I took a course on abundance, um and one of the things was use your imagination more to help you get more into experiencing what it is you want to have come to you. And I imagined I will receive 4 divine messages about abundance. And I shortly thereafter I got a message from my own soul, my higher self. And it said, Ray, remember abundance is not always about money. And it went on, said more than that. And then I heard from God, Raymond, my son, yes, God, you are worthy of all the abundance you desire, as I have told you. He said, I want to bless you with something special, and it will be a minor miracle, but something you will recognize immediately. Stay alert for that within the next 24 hours. And it came to happen. It was this minor miracle. I saw this. It was the sun through the clouds creating images for me. Four distinct, very distinct images flashed through in a matter of seconds. The angels responded. This is your guardian angels with a message. Remember, you are an expression of God. And it goes on. And then I receive communication from my guides. And the guides, this is interesting because we are pleased to serve you. Please incorporate abundance as part of your heaven on earth, as you have been doing. And the more you feel it at a cellular level, the better. Your cells are also very attuned to serving you. And you can also have special requests to them. Yes. All right, let me bring this to a close. I've gone longer again than I wanted to, but just so you know that how interesting this can be. One time when I was talking with with my guides, and or more specifically, I was talking about energy levels, and I asked them, "Do you have a crystal expert among you that I can direct questions to if they come up?" And it was interesting because in these communications, the response usually is immediate. Now, there have been times when I've had God, you know, reach out to me, "Ray, I'd like to talk with you." And I've had to say, "Wait a minute, let me shift into a different state of awareness." And so I keep them waiting while I grab my journal book and I shift into presence, full presence. But at any rate, so when I asked that question, I heard this delay. And in fact, I heard, "Wait a minute, we're we're getting an answer for you." And then the answer came back, "Yes, her name is Ruth. Since we don't use names exactly as English speaking humans do, we had to ask her how you should reach out to her and ask for Ruth, and she will be pleased to help you." And so I've enlisted the help of a specialist in crystals, and I've had multiple conversations with her that have gotten very technical about crystals, if you will. And so it's all very interesting. Um, I, hopefully I've provided, enough information about how this works um, to help make it clear. Now, so let me come back to a key point. I think that if you raise your energy vibration enough, I've been told that um, for many people, just shifting into a high state of um, unconditional love may not be enough to connect or have a good enough connection. And I've been told the reason is that now on Earth we have so much electromagnetic frequency uh, in in our environment that it blocks the communication, and so does stress, and so does other types of toxic diets, for example, can block your communication. Um, but electromagnetic interference from cell phones and from computers and monitors, and not just cell phones themselves, but the cellular transmissions um, can cause a lot of interference. So I've been told that if you can raise your vibration to at least the level of 100,000 vibrations per second, um, that that will put you over and really open you up to communication with the divine. That's what happened for me. That's what I talked about in a fairly recent episode. Um, and uh, so that's something that you may need to do. I am now in the business of making and selling crystal pendants, high energy crystal pendants. Not just any crystal will necessarily do. The larger the better. Um, Here's my golden mica crystal pendant. It's quite large. It raises my energy level by a huge amount, and I talk about that on my website, raymondposch.com. But so that's an aspect, and you can get these high energy crystals from many different places. Um, I'd advise you to go to my website and go to my pendants page and read about what I'm doing with pendants. And there I talk about how I measure the energy level uh, of how crystals and pendants affect me. Um, and I talk about some different kinds of crystals, but that's an aspect, shifting into awareness and staying in the state of receptive awareness, opening and allowing and staying in awareness is critical. If you start hearing things pop up in your head, thoughts about something, judgments, suddenly imagining things. Um, now, intuition can communicate through images and so on. So I I don't know if I can right at the moment define it clearly for you a definition of how knowing that you're completely off into imagination. Um, but if you always come back and say, be present, be in the moment, be aware, open, and allow the divine to speak to me and receive. That's a good thing. But you need to be able to somehow make it the assessment. Are you in full awareness, full receptivity? What else? I think I would advise you, if you haven't studied presence as taught by Eckhart Tolle, you may want to do that. What you learn in just meditation, it helps you focus, it helps you shift into quiet awareness, but generally not not necessarily at the deep enough level to have a divine conversation. Um, if you study what he teaches, it probably would. That's one resource to help. On my website, if you sign up for my email list, you can get a free download of a guided meditation teaching Eckhart Tolle's technique of inner body awareness, and going into it to such a deep level that you're totally aware of your subtle energy field, which is what he does, and you're aware that you're now in a state of being in communion with God, with the divine. You feel it as a state of beingness. Uh, it's definitely you feel it. You don't think about it. You feel beingness and awareness and presence. You feel this being connected to the divine, being open to the divine, beingness. You have to feel it. Um, in the process of getting there, you can focus your awareness, on your breathing or on something that you're looking at, or there's a number of different ways, but that guided meditation might help you as well. So I would advise you to do everything you can to learn to do this, because the more you can be guided, in communion with the divine, whether you focus on angels or spirit guides or God, whatever it is, the more you can do that, the more that you can turn your life over to being guided. And you will learn, if you stay focused and asking questions, um, you will learn how to know the guidance. I mean, in the book, The Wisdom of the Council, they talk about follow the energy. And uh, that takes some learning of how to do that or follow the light. But it's very much worthwhile. Thank you for watching this episode or listening, whichever case. Um, and I hope this has been helpful as in the not too distant future. I know I've been being guided to develop a course that gets into more specifics on this, but that's not available yet. So hopefully that will happen in before the year is out. Um, so thank you again. You have a great day and a great life.